Morning, everybody. It's time, right? So we will start with the opening prayers, beginning on page 1 of the prayer book. So we recite once in English, and then we follow the transliteration, which is in bold, which is the pronunciation for the Tibetan. So once in English, and then once in Tibetan. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. All sentient beings, limitless as the sky, take refuge in the glorious kind Lama Vajradhara, the embodiment of the body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, source of the 84,000 categories of the teaching, and Lord of the Sanghas. We take refuge in the kind root lamas and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Sanje Jongden De Nam Lai Gyab Sun Je Wo Dambe Cho Nam La Gyab Sun Je Wo Babe Gende Nam Lai Gyab Sun Je Wo Bawa Kan Lo Che Gyong Sung Me So Ye Je Jen Dan Den Ba Nam Lai Gyab Sun Je Wo. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path.
Sanje Jodan Sojen Jono. Ningpo Sanje Nam Lai Gyab Sun Je Jodan Jangjo Samba Ye Tolan Dijen Gyab Sun Je Je Dara Nguje De She Ke Jangjo Tone Ke Ba Dang Jangjo Sembe La Ba La De Da Rim Jin Ne Ba Dar De Jin Do La Pin Don De Jangjo Sembe Ge Ge Sheng De Jin Do Ne La Ba La Rim Ba Jin Do La Ba Ge O. Page 5. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached, and by the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sanje Jodan Sojen Jonan La Jangjo Barde Dane Gyab Sun Chen Dage Jen Soy Jinbe Sonan Je Ngandola Penje Sanje Dubai Sho.
May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Refuge of all sentient beings without exception, divine subjugator of terrifying Maras, together with their hosts of demons, the one who understands all realities without exception exactly as they are, transcend and conquer together with your disciples, please come here to this place.
Om Benzara Samanza, Benzara Samanza, Om Benzara Samanza, Malay Semjen Gunjen Wonjurjeng, and the Bonjem Mezen Jomze Lam
Gonam Malu Jishin
Chenjoro Be Jomden Gorje Nende Yesu So Argan Bodin Bure Dube Nyalo Gengende Nire Shabda Paradisa So.
Page 7. The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the 4 continents, and the sun and moon. As a Buddha field, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fields. Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. And then we flip to page 11. Namo, to the Lama of utterly pure appearance and existence, I offer the fundamental ground of appearance and existence. I supplicate you to thoroughly liberate the 3 realms. Please grant your blessings and overturn the depths of samsara. Sublime Master, wish-fulfilling jewel, crown ornament, the inconceivable, inexpressible mind of the victorious ones, the one endowed with the 5 wisdoms of omniscience, gracious one, the embodiment of love, precious protector of beings, I supplicate you from within the essence of mind, please grant your blessings from within the innate nature. Please bless me that I may realize the Dharmakaya that is beyond intellect, and this primordially unborn, completely pure mind. Transcendent conqueror, the one thus gone, foe destroyer of afflictive emotions, completely perfected Buddha, endowed with logic and virtue, the one gone to bliss, knower of the world, captain, tamer of beings, the unexcelled teacher of gods and men, I respectfully prostrate, completely touching my head to the stainless feet of the unequaled Shakya king. At the time of your birth, leader of 2-legged beings, taking 7 steps on this great earth, you proclaimed, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise, even then I prostrate. Possessing a body of complete purity, your sublime form is excellent. An ocean of primordial wisdom, you are like a golden mountain. The one whose renown is evident throughout the 3 worlds, protector of supreme attainment, to you I prostrate. To you who are endowed with the supreme marks, whose face is like an immaculate moon, to you, the one with a complexion like gold, I prostrate. A flawless one such as you, among the 3 levels of existence, is most exquisite. unparalleled omniscient one, to you I prostrate, supreme among humans, captain of those to be tamed, the one thus gone who severs the all-binding fetters, who, with senses pacified, is utterly pacified and skilled in peace. To that one, the one who dwelled at Shravasti, I prostrate, refuge endowed with great compassion, totally omniscient one who indicates the way, ground basis for oceans of merit and qualities, I prostrate to the one thus gone, the pure cause free from attachments, the virtue that liberates from the lower realms, the altogether supreme ultimate truth. To the pacifying Dharma I prostrate. Having been liberated, they also reveal the path to liberation. Thoroughly respectful of the three higher trainings, they are a field of sublime qualities. To the Sangha I also prostrate. And then we can turn back to page 9 for the Tibetan pronunciation.
Namo Namse Namda Ke Lama La Namse Shigyen Sun Chobamba Ankam San Yomdora De Sowan De Kurwa Tongto Se Chenje Lo Jie Shen Noba Toke Jan Ma San Jume Jerebe To Anjembe Yeshe Ngadan Den Seve Danye Gade Jan Andowa Jumze Rinpoche Dasemye Jemane Sowande
Juni
Jemande Jenje Lo Samdone Jeme Namdande Alonde Sugar Toba Jenje Lo John Dende Tijin Jeba Adajamba Yandabar Zobe Sanje Regba Dan Yabzen Demba Deware Jegba Jeden Jemba Jive Dewa Kaloi Jurwa Lana Meba Lada Me Namje Domba Nyame Shae Jijaboi Shaje De Jema Meba La Gowa Rabde Dode Janza Loi Kanze Ganye Zowo Jodam Se Sajen De La Komba Duvorane Ngane Jeden De Nan Choje Son De Zen Kepa Chela Chanza Lo Ananda Gungan Chode Sozan Wai Yeshe Janzo Serje Rumbanda Adaba Jeden Sona Nange Wai Gomba Jonin Chela Chanza Lo Anten Jodenba Jimin Dave Sarandor Dawa Chela Chansalo Chude Zoma Soman Nyame Jen Chela Chansalo Amen Join Dua Kalo Junze Jen Kunjo Jingwa Junze Dijin Nambo Yedan Ye Yelan Ke Nyo Shoba Dela Chanzalo Andromo Doje Jedam Ba Tam Jen Chembe Tomba Na Yonden Janzo Yen Dijin Yela Chanzalo je de dong dai jo jo ro vai shi jo ro jo lai chang de lo a do ne do ve la yan do la ba da la ra de ge jing ge dang ba yan den je gen de la yan chang lo.
So then on page 15. I prostrate to the youthful Manjushri, to those in the worlds of the 10 directions, however many there are, all the lions among humans who appear during the 3 times, to all of them without exception, I pay homage with respectful body, speech, and mind. The force of my aspiration prayer for excellent conduct brings all the victorious ones directly to mind. Bowing down with bodies as numerous as atoms in the realms, I prostrate to all the victorious ones. In a single atom there are Buddhas as numerous as atoms, each residing in the midst of their sons and daughters. Like that, I imagine the whole Dharmadhatu completely filled with victorious ones. To those with oceans of inexhaustible praiseworthy qualities, with sounds containing oceans of tones of melodic speech, I express the qualities of all the victorious ones. I praise all the Sugatas, with the finest flowers, the finest garlands, music, ointments, supreme parasols, supreme lamps, and the finest incense. I make offerings to the victorious ones, with the finest cloths, supreme scents, and fine powders equal to Mount Meru, all displayed in supreme and magnificent ways. I make offerings to those victorious ones. With vast and unsurpassable offerings, I venerate all the victorious ones. Through the power of faith and excellent conduct, I prostrate and offer to the victorious ones. Whatever negative actions I have performed with body, speech, and also mind, overpowered by desire, aggression, and stupidity, I confess each and every one of them. I rejoice in everyone's merit, the victorious ones of the 10 directions, the Bodhisattvas, the Pratyeka Buddhas, those in training, those beyond training, and all beings. I request the protectors, the lamps of the worlds of the 10 directions, who, passing through the stages of awakening, attain Buddhahood beyond attachment, to turn the unsurpassable Dharma wheel. I supplicate with my palms joined together those who intend to demonstrate nirvana, to remain for kalpas as numerous as atoms in the realms, for the welfare and happiness of all beings. I dedicate whatever slight virtue is accumulated through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and supplicating to enlightenment. And then back to 14. Or 15 for the Tibetan.
de da nga bai mi ze jiang zo na yang je yan la jiang zo da gun ye na gun je yan de rao jo jin de wa ye ba tam je da ge do a me do tam ba jing wa tam ba tam sin ye nam da jo ba du jo da nhằm mà mẹ cho ta tu bồi tam ba ye gia ba ta ta la ne chu ba ye na za tam ba nam da je jo ta je ma par me ra nyam ba ta go ba ya cha ba ba de jo gen je cho ba con na la me ya je wa da da ya wa tam che la yang mo jo la de be do da ki ya wa con na chang se cho ba je do ja she da de mo wang ge ne le da nga da ge je ye ye jang ne ba da ge je ba jin je ba ta da tam je da ge so so ya cho je ya wa kun da san je se ran ja nam da lo da me lo da and wa kun je so nam gang la ya da kun je je se da ye rang ka na cho je je da do ma da chang jo ren ba san je ma ja ni bo je da tam je la ko la na me ba ko wa ko nyam nyam da dong gang she de da la ro wa kun la bin jing de we che ga ba jing ge de ne sho ba ya da ge de mo ra ja so wa ji nya chang sa wa da jo je ya ba da je se ye ran gu shen so wa ye ge wa chung se da ge je sa ba tam je sa be chang ju chen bo mo. And then page 16. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the two vehicles and their combination according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings. Samjen namje sambadang loye jeda var jejun temo tekba ye chuge korlo kordu so. Sa je je be jang la gu jang ze de me wo zhe to je jing gu de mo de je jing wo je da wa nya tam je ze ba gu chen chu je je nya men de wu zhen jian gu jang ze wu mi chu je Relame Jolo Gujon, Kondo Jojo, Dongen Jedana, the Yellow Consodo, the Dombe Jujan Beba. Sembrando Adam Gender, Yeshena Moria, Ege, Dondo, Dondo Jige, Dondo, Domi, Ginum, Dorgun Jeda, Kejetomba, Dom Jige, Doge, Judan. Good morning. Tini da ngato drink karsekore chu siduda chu chetandi ji kandi ji gore tene tsekahi je dan tatang rewe ke tone tene ji chu chibi ke da karsekore ji 편도는 마성나 카리우스는 tsekahi ji hyayis.
So today, Drupon thought he would talk a little bit about general Dharma practice, how to say a few words about how to go about Dharma practice, and then also in connection with Dharma practice, what are some beneficial things that can help.
디니다 지탕가 주 집이게 다 고파 세나리 reason 카치고레 슬라비나 다 직텐디 케나네 다 어서 지탕 코르와 슬랍고레 텐두이나 야다 초현식 삼노 땅비나 나초테네 직텐 킨디 케나네 고 메세야테 고 자침보인 바탕 고 메세야티게 지단 튼첸 톤도 힘바탕 만다위게 지 튼첸 세나리 데이터 지탑 튼리 야보지 드롭 부여레스.
And so as for like the reason for Dharma practice, we can say for spiritual practice, so this world, which also, in a Buddhist sense, we refer to as samsara. And so on the one hand, it is samsara, but on the other hand, it's, really this glorious opportunity because to be a human being is something really, really precious. And to have, we have these conditions that are really favorable as human beings. It's really different from, say, if we were born as an animal.
That thing, 당아서 고갑 bena ta tenjor jim lu jumbo che sungu doa tindu ko mu ke ji kwara body system do ina nu pa kha yo maris ro nga so ya nam na la ya porto gu mari bu chung chung do ya nam na por no yo ro tine nga so ju kha ya la yo mari tine tindi ke tom nu pa chi yo maris 지 이나야 가서는 가수기 텐저 물루 림보체에서야 그 중생 가리슬라위나 가수 인텔리전트 삼지 미차비게 가수 기타 누파와 혈압 뒤게 톱지는 되네 거지 누파 희우지게 동토비야지 가수를 요래스.
So what are some of the advantages of having a precious human rebirth, having been reborn as a human being with all of the leisures and endowments? So on the one hand, if we think about it, like our body system, like our body physically, we don't have such great power or strength, when we compare maybe our situation to other animals. Like we can't fly in the sky, that's something that even like little insects with wings can do. And we can't run like all that fast, when you compare it to other types of creatures that can run and jump really far. But what is it that we have that's really so extraordinary, with this human birth with leisures and endowments? we have a very powerful intellect. So we have the capacity for understanding and wisdom that really is much greater than that of other life forms.
어다 디인도 다 혈압 디게 제가 저게 혈압 양답게 혈압 제 회주지 집이나 되네 다 간지리나 가서 지 가서 심전담지 대원동행인 봐. 그러고 대원동행 대양 되네 징통인 봐. 대가 나이게 심전담지 양 지다 강에 문동행요. 지파인 봐. 대양 되네게다 어떻게 지래서.
And so how can we apply these faculties of intellect or this wisdom that we have? So we can think about the fact, first of all, that all beings, all living creatures, have the impulse or the drive to achieve well-being and happiness. So we're all the same in that. There's no being that wants to suffer.
어디인도 땅아서 혈압 뒤게 즉 다hin 집이나 드네다 즉 직간디기 나네 강의 용사대 간에스 용구도 그러와 즉 다집이나 말에 마타 마치비 그거라 섬노당비나 다지 치게 강에도양 즉 치기 유제라 때네 양 강의 용구 요원으로 제당 양거 대신도지 인비는 양 다 치기 유제라 때네 그 대신 중국 요원으로 제 초구레스.
And so what our wisdom or our faculties of intellect can enable us to do is to examine, if no being wants to suffer, what is the way in which difficulty, hardship, and suffering arises in the world? And for those who can't investigate, who don't have the power or that faculty of intellect, then they can't examine, and there is not the ability to really see where it is that difficulty or hardship and suffering comes from. And they just assume that it comes from outer objects. There's just the assumption that whatever hardship is because of some sort of external circumstance.
이나다 고지 relative level로 relative level로 군도 공원도 레다직 강이나리 대치나리 고치 유제를 때네 그 연구 요래티 이나양 다 authentic 즉 동탄배기 뭐네기 즉 대치세야디 칠 연구요 말이스.
And so on a relative level, of course, there's truth to some extent. There's truth to that difficult circumstances, suffering does come from outer circumstances, outer objects. But if we really look more deeply, in a really authentic way, we see that that the suffering does not lie actually in those outer circumstances or those outer objects. Okay, so maybe not suffering, he says, but hardship.
디인다 대양 가서다 analyze로 딱지 집이나 당기 공투하나 이랬더니 지유를 중국어 말이스.
So we have to analyze and really examine until we really see the way in which those hardships don't actually in reality come from those outer objects that we attribute them to.
때 간행 중국어에서는 나조게 individual와 머랭어리 경우네 되네직다 넘버 똑바 다 넘버 똑바 대양 지 갈세거다 차단게 갈세버다 파운데이션도 마진도 치치 디게 토네 되네 뇽몽베게 다 갈세거리 게 꾸는 랑대와 남포 꾸는 랑대와 좀 생길래 때네 되네 가서다 강의대 연구요사레스.
But it's more so then how is it if they don't if the hardship doesn't lie in the outer circumstances, where does the hardship come from? And so it really is the individual, like it's themselves, that their own hardship is primarily responsible for the attitude or the way in which we react to those outer circumstances. So in our concepts, in our thoughts, that are primarily based on the two mind states of attachment and aversion. So it's really the mind of attachment and aversion that forms the foundation, for all of the other kind of difficult emotions that arise from that. So we have attachment and aversion, and then there's all sorts of different afflictions that then arise in the mind, and the real source of that difficulty or hardship is in the affliction itself.
reason wa jumsen karsena nga so chorwaji yorwa chorwati khari yor semke tengi chorwada re ista nga so dechin jungdo samdu semke chorwaji re do wa ta tanda kangye do samdu semke chorwaji re do wa wada tendiji inbadi semke chorwa teyang tene yabo ji taungbe kabla ji benna hedang ro ji langde be kabla semke chorwa de kochi wo hera mewan ro ji yang ji tega na yi ge nga zo da ji henang ro wo dang tega na yi ge ji ta kharse gore semten ro wo dang tendi yongbe kabla tene nga zo chorwa de ko chorwa ji wo mewan ro ji yongge do wa wada di ha ko gu yusares.
And so, because really everything is mind, so the way that we feel is primarily directed by, that has everything to do with our state of mind. So if we are in a state of mind that is choosing to perceive or experience a positive outlook or well-being and happiness, then that is primarily because of our mind state. If we're in a mind state that is primarily choosing to view our experience as difficulty and hardship, that is primarily because of our mind state. And so if we choose to focus on the feelings that are positive, or to have a positive mind state, then our feeling, our sensation is one of positive, that is a positive, that of positivity or well-being and happiness. If, on the other hand, and we only need to look at our mind state, say, for instance, when we're angry. So when anger is present in the mind, how does that feel? Is that a pleasant mind state? Is that an unpleasant mind state? Do we feel happy, or do we feel difficulty and hardship? If we have anger, or if we have anxiety or worry in our mind, then the feeling, the experience that follows is one that is unhappy.
Oda tindi indu tati ha kogu yosare ta tenyang nga so luckily ro nga so khogap ji yor wa khogap de karsena ji nga chu ke jula tanda ji kangi ti timbu yowa de karsena nga so ta nga so semin ba ha kobi na tene ti ke karsena nga so ra le lo yor wa ti ji wo lo ya yor wa ti ndu henje la to go ma res oda ti ha kogu yosare.
And so what is actually such great news about this, or what's really, great about understanding this, is that luckily, if it is the case that our mind is primarily responsible for our experience, then we have the power to change our experience. So whether or not we experience primarily difficulty and hardship or well-being and happiness has to do with us and how we choose to direct the mind. And so that is actually something we can feel happy about.
That in the many ways, Kadisamo Tango Slavina, not to hear up TK, ha kone, Karsena, koji kanye songen rawdi eta ransinari individual ran suzuki juni nyumba yimba thang hakko terawa hira ke zesimba tiga na yi ke yang tike hakko go yusare ji ngazo kanye yuwa ta nekap ke ta ji kanye senari tela tene ji yang permanent do mayimba rawa koran ke tesungdo ngazo ji nekap ke lo nekap ke nyum barawa ngazo di nyum momba ta kanye de ji rangi henjis yuwa juno mare ko ji ta temporary nekap tende ji ta tinggu yorwa tendu ti nekap imbi jumsen la tene ngazo jorwa ten tu yore nekap imbi ke jumsen la tene ben tesungdo ben tsende yang ko sanji gre so sanji se ya ti jumsen de sanji se ya ke ta 책대 가르라고 요라비나 지금 가서 상지엘도 오당가 사자 신바지를 놓야다고 지로와 지갑 신바지를 문 놓야다고 지로와 텐디제면도와 텐디 양 니마지 고양 상지엘도 신바지 라마도 지키양 고지 바치람도 지든 정마장장 손도야 게리면도와 디인도 가리세나 라란수수게 고 냠랜디야 주장하네 다 갈래 지금 전바신도 되네 지금 용바테 총로 느파로 갈래 총로 도네 타마데라 지금 용몽바 맞서 들라고도 대송그래 벨로시 숭도와 로시 세야데 가릴라나 되네 지금 다 남도 시노고다 남도 너 차라와 조선 라고 피니시노 오다 티니 모텔라 되는 것도 상지 슬라고다 좀생 갈세는 상지 세야디 당이 공
So there are many ways to many ways to address this or practice with this, but mainly it is wisdom that is functioning here, like that identifies the difficulty or the hardship, and then identifies the cause of that difficulty, the true cause of that difficulty being the negative mind states or the afflictions in the mind stream. And so that is how we address this, or how we work with this, is really by employing that faculty of wisdom. And that wisdom also knows or sees that which is the nature of difficulty, that which is the nature of affliction, all of the negative mind states are not permanent, that they're not actually an intrinsic aspect of the true nature. So they're not what's referred to as co-emergent. So they're temporary. So again, in their being temporary, what that means is that they can be changed, they can be transformed. So the temporary negativity in the mind can be removed, it can be transformed, and it also means that there's the possibility for awakening or Buddhahood, attaining the state of Buddhahood. So this word Buddhahood, like, what does that mean? What is enlightenment? What is that really? So it doesn't mean that we become like some completely different being, or that we like go to some other place, that we have to go, go to some distant land, or there's this, kind of different place to arrive at, or state to arrive at, or that, some Lama can give us, tremendous blessings, and then, that he can just, cause all our obscurations to become purified, and then we can become enlightened. So it isn't like that. Enlightenment is a very gradual process. So it's something that occurs through continuous practice, little by little, step by step, in progressive stages. What happens is that as we work with our mind, as we work with our emotions, the power of those negative emotions diminishes over time. They become less and less. And then finally, the ultimate result over a long period of time is that the conceptual mind, at the mind of afflictive emotions, becomes exhausted. It's just finished. It just is no longer there. And that's what Buddhahood is. That's what we refer to as enlightenment or awakening.
Tiga na ita te sungre lo si sungdo lo si sungre tene chu si sungre wa te kare shuina ta lo si sungdu ta nyima ji nga chu ji hedang se bar wa ta hedang kale ta hedang zo ta hedang la ma cha wa te ta same time hedang zo na 추시 정도 파기 유일은 인도처럼 마가와 마치와 초랑케다 어다 간타야 지 가르세나 초랑케 그 comfortable 메시게 유도다 세버다 줘버와 추시 정도 다 된디인데 된다 그 가르세나티 다 상지라고 다 강에 민도와 그 강에 요 말이 그 다요 말이 다음에 좀 센터를 때네 말이다 कोई कर्ज नहीं हेदां यो मारे हेदां में भी जुमसें तल देने को ड्रायो मरवा 대단 냠도 되네지 대중을 다 자당 효침부 자당을 와 강이 되게 대가 나기게 그 same time 그 나솔량 착바지시 유요말 나 남주이나 그 다유베들 점생라 때네 그 가서 인터디펜던트와 다유 점생들 때네 녀지 요르와 다 가르치고야지 양 참마 인터디펜던트 그 다들티 당와 요래 당와 유비 점생들 때는 양 녀들 착바지 요르와 다 티기 레조라고 다 템포러리 레드조 레조라고 때 가서 강해지 되고 다 티기 근데 해당 유나 강해 되고래 그 잡아 유나 강해지 되고 오다 티인도 가서 단다 로시 시아틀라 same time 티니 추시 시아틀 러그요레스.
So there are these two terms that he's using. One is in Tibetan lo se. So what I just described before is the exhaustion of like conceptual mind. So lo is a word for mind, which sometimes means like the so here the exhaustion of intellect, the exhaustion of, but actually it just occurred to me that probably the best way to translate this in this context is the exhaustion of limited mind. And then the second word is, or term, is the exhaustion of phenomena. So these two things are what gradually happens. And it is, so with the first term, the exhaustion of limited mind. Oh, sorry, the mic is a little bit too close, he said. Is this okay? Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. So the exhaustion of, like, for instance, when our afflictive emotions are exhausted, so anger is exhausted, if anger is exhausted, then that is directly related to the second term, which is the exhaustion of phenomena, meaning that once the limited mind is exhausted, then the outer like manifestation of unfavorable phenomena is also exhausted. So if anger is exhausted, once there is no longer any anger, then there do not appear to us the phenomena of, say, like enemies or people that we don't like. So the objects are transformed. Those objects that are the nature of, or the reflections of affliction, are also no longer present. So for somebody who is enlightened, for Buddha, there is no difficulty or hardship. They don't have any anger, and so therefore there are no enemies, right? So the mind of attachment and aversion becoming fully exhausted, so then so if there's no attachment in the mind, then there's no object of attachment. If there's no anger in the mind, there's no object of anger, because everything is interdependent. So if we have a concept of enemies, then we have a concept of friends or the opposite of enemies. So the mind splits into, I like this, I don't like that. I like this person, I don't like that person. And so our entire experience is governed by this mind of affliction, which is kind of swinging between this pendulum of attachment on the one hand and aversion on the other. So just as much as aversion or hatred causes us suffering, attachment also causes us suffering. So when these two kind of aspects are exhausted, the aspect of the limited mind, the aspect of phenomena or phenomena that is like connected with the limited mind, then there's also what that signals is the exhaustion of karma. And so we no longer, when karma is exhausted, then we no longer have any hardship or suffering.
오다 디인도 대다 계시 가서 로시 추시 세나 tené ngato ta dechi seya jirwa joyful wa oda tené ta teyang chi ngone jingjiken de ke dechin ro ina ta jorwe ke rang yin teyang ko dechi teyang ngone ki superficial arwa nekap tené ji cha de yorwa tené ta kesi ko lo si chu si bi na tené ta tartuk dewa chembo laudwa 오다 티네 직당 원이 장내기 대화 첨부 대화 첨부 대양 티네 대화 첨부 대양 티네 지 대화 첨부 임비기 줌센라 때네 디 대화들라 지 화지 치용해요 말와 화지 치용해 직당 제가 너 이렇게 디 대화 첨부들라 티네 야 조로야 로다 티네 요새 말이스
And so then the result, is it okay to go close? Is it better to go close now to the mic? Is this good? Okay. And so then the result of the exhaustion of the limited mind and the exhaustion of phenomena is that we become truly happy, authentically happy and joyful. And di jikten di jorwe rangshin sena?
이렇게 jorwe랑 jirwa
Jorwa? Jorwa. Oh, okay.
changing
Everything in this world is subject to change. It's the nature of change. And so anytime there's investment in like happiness that is dependent upon external conditions or worldly happiness, we could say, this only can bring like a superficial level of contentment or happiness. But when there's really the exhaustion of affliction, or these two types of exhaustion happen, then the result of that is true, authentic, or ultimate well-being and happiness. And so once then that is achieved, or when that has occurred, then there's nothing that can actually cause an obstacle to us. There's nothing that is actually that can really harm you. And so all dependent upon that, all kind of adversity or obstacle likewise is exhausted.
어디인데 대가라 따단다 대라왕이 돼. 대가라 아마송도 따지던 대화 첨부세야 이도와.
Oh yeah.
대 대화 첨부세야 돼 토부요레스.
And then
대화 첨부세야 디 가레슬라비나 되네 지 베나텔은 줄와 메와로와. 대가 나기 계시 대화 첨부이나 되네 힘바지에 게테네 양 벌치 되네 지토부요 말레스.
And so then what the true happiness or authentic happiness that is the resultant happiness is great happiness, or maybe we even often this kind of happiness. The word is the same in Tibetan. Dewa can be translated as happiness. It can be translated as bliss. Often, when it's talking about this type of happiness, it's actually translated as bliss. So that is when the state of great bliss is achieved. And that kind of great bliss is unchanging. It's constant, it's unchanging. And so when that great bliss has been achieved, there is a complete end to adversity or obstacles. There's nothing that can cause an obstacle.
디인들이 대가 나이 가서 다 몰람 되는 용도와 타르베 켈람나 신세야 되네 되네 고 대첸케 다 대화전에 대첸케 람나 신세야 되네 요레스 타르베 람나 신세야 되 좀생 칼람나 다 가서 지고 대화 진보 람나라 람티가 랩소나 단 대사로 와 So maybe we can close the window. I don't know. They're very
Yeah, it is
busy.
a little distracting. So when we make aspiration prayers, sometimes there's language like, may I seize the path of liberation, or may I really enter into or take hold of the path of liberation, or may I take hold of the path of great bliss. So if we achieve or enter into that path of liberation, that path of liberation is the same as the path of great bliss.
람나 신이라고 람나세나 ngazo penna ta chik sache chik gan roya lamga ji yuna penna ngazo ta pero for example penna ngazo highway 75 landogo zamgu yuna ta thangbo chik male ngola kangi yoro traffic light yore lamga ha ko mare yina yang ko ta khesi ko pagila te chik ko 75 ko highway lemna ta lebare ta tele lo chiro yang himba ji lemro yo marwa ko goya yo marwa ko ta tin tharwe lamna si ta ti
So maybe a way to take it, it's kind of a funny word in Tibetan, but one word to say this verb would just be, may I take the path of liberation? Because, and what's being referred to here is that, so for instance, like if taking a path, right, or entering into a path, when we are traveling, when we're in the car and we haven't gotten to Highway 75 yet, and we're on roads that have lots of traffic lights and we have to stop at each of the traffic lights. But then once we enter the highway, when we're on 75, it's like a straight shot. We're just going, there's nothing in our path, and we don't have to stop at traffic lights. And so there's no that better path or faster path than that. So that's kind of like the analogy here.
Right, so we're looking for for example, highway I-75 or something. So yes, before reach there, yes, the challenges, right? So maybe this traffic, maybe you can, these days have GPS, but sometimes very confusing. Where is that, so not get there, and the tremendous, challenges, right? But through the challenges, and you get there, because you want to reach, the highway 75. So you get there, that's it, you got it, Ota tindu ngato ta teje tobyala ko kange yorwa. Ngato nyamle mambo chi gorma tops kawa chi tangi kontu na yere lamsan top donya yo mares.
But on the way to the highway, we have a lot of traffic lights. So it's the same way, once we get to liberation or stages of liberation, then it's easy going. But until that happens, then there will be difficulties and hardships along the way. And we also can't expect to just immediately get there. We have to acknowledge that it takes time.
다 테레 다 디인도 베나탄다 로시 추시 고고요나 다 간리지 고그레스다 다 가서다 냠량치 고그로와 내가 가당가 다니 콘티와나 이래 jik lo si chu se ya to lam som me jik ti khaya yo mare sa jik lan ro ne len khaya yo mare tindi indu ta nyamlen chi go yo res.
So how, what is the method? What is the way to get to these stages of the exhaustion of limited mind, the exhaustion of the corresponding phenomena? It's through all of the methods of Dharma practice. So again, it's something we enter into and we apply consistent effort and we continue to work with our minds. We can't expect to have somebody just transport us to some other state, we can't expect to immediately get there. It's a process. It's a long process.
어디 인도 다 냠len 치야라 되네 다 섬노 땅국도 냠len 치야라 지 냠len 자 첨부 치야 요리 냠len 자야 중중 치야 요리 이나 냠len 치야데 가르치는 치고 요리 섬노 땅비나 다기 공투바 나기래 나주 그 로데 와 넘버 똑 받았다 지 중run로야 넘버 똑비게 지 락파 뇽몬반도 자 해당라서 바텔 다 칼레 고 칼레 누파 충루 땅고고요 그래서.
And the degree of our practice is kind of up to us. We can practice really extensively. We can practice in a more kind of limited way or to a lesser extent. But what it is that we're doing in either case is we're causing our concepts, our sort of stories and afflictive emotions to become like softer and softer, or less and less. So they start off like both our thoughts, our concepts, and our afflictions are very coarse. And then gradually as we practice, they become not so coarse, they diminish, they gradually diminish over time.
어디 인도 그 정도 가르치나 냠len 치당 마지리 모토비케 그 산지 고모탑당 마도 말이 슬럭도
산지 토가레 마토
냠len 치야 치나 톱 그래 손에 이나다 같이 삼그로 다가 냠len 치나 텐디 산지 콤판다 다저 톱그 말에 로 삼그로 레라오 요사 마테 말이스 냠len 치당 마지리스 냠len 치나 톱로 그래 라고다 그 expecting 요난다 메나다 톱 그래스.
So it's always said that what determines, whether we can attain enlightenment or not is practice. So if you practice, then it will happen. If you don't practice, it won't happen. And there's really no other factor, apart from that. So if, some have doubt, they think like, oh, even if I practice, like, I'm not cut out for this, or I won't attain enlightenment. But it isn't that way. If you practice, then there's no, the automatic result of that is eventually awakening or enlightenment. If you don't practice, then you can't expect to have any result.
다 당연히 휴원나기리 냠len 집이 이렇게 평용세야 되다. 다 냠len 집이 평용 요래. 섬지메 차와 요래. 손에. 배나 대승구도와 직 다탄다 중중직 섬노 땅다라와 중중직 섬노 땅비는 다 휴지하 고금이 위나야 1 minute와 뭐 I make the magic 좀 되네 곰자야 로지라고는
1 minute 가리? Oh, mix zoom.
make 좀 시나리 다 강다 1 minute. 되니지라 되네 되니지 그 nga gom jagyo samde gom yago jagyo top yuna mina ti lo ti ke tini jim korba ta korang pa ta ji manga destroy no cha sa res chagyo res samsara ro.
So the benefits of practice are really inconceivably vast. Even when we just take a very small moment, or just even 1 minute to turn the mind inward, to meditate, we close our eyes, we look within, and we meditate even for 1 minute, in that 1 minute, then there is a minute where samsara has been destroyed. Rebe.
Yes, so temporarily. Yes, so 가리스는 가 저단 직텐디나라 자가섬노 약보지 땅비나 초지들이 땅가 졸레칼레기오레 칼라사기오레 참살레카 하드워크 지고레 참sam나야 다 트링한 예소이 위켄디도 섬기오레 디나야 오네 단기 기지 1 minute 베치샤요 그 누파데 가서 하토부요 말했어 곰자베 누파데
야보고마서
이나 가서 단 직텐디나라스 직텐디다 강요몬다마다 제그로와 당가서 참살레카 베칼레카 보텐디 제그로와 달레카 칼레카 보텐디 지네 다 트링가 베나타 위켄디 레카메 samtanga relax to chi sabado yorwa kana ya jikta tren khala ya bonda sa ta ten ji kawando na jik jip chin do ta movie ta teniro chegirwa ina ti ke de chi ta tangi kontiwa na yere ji ina ya ta nga gomja se ya ke sem ta ma ne phabya de 용토부여 말이스 가르메 공가트니 위켄디 지오이 칼라사 텐디 치비나 용고 말이스 이네 샘 가리네 페그레잖아 베노 1 minute 도 쳔레가 곰자요 로섬나 테네 티게 베데 다 고지 갈세 거래 tremendous benefit yours the training.
So when we live our lives and we have a lot of responsibilities and we work really hard. And maybe, for instance, like we work all week and then, the weekend comes and then we're like, I really need to relax. I just want to enjoy myself. So I'm going to eat some nice food. Again, maybe do something enjoyable, like go to a movie, or just like really, I just need to rest. So I just want to enjoy myself. But the reality is that, all of those efforts to enjoy ourselves, even 1 minute of meditation or finding some inner peace through meditative equipoise is so much more fulfilling and powerful than all of those efforts that we might try to find some sense of enjoyment or relaxation in all of these other ways.
대가나 얘기 돼서 그래다. 샘로와 정말 로래 가서 샘로와 샘이 좀 센터를 되네. 지당 텐데 송구도와 지 맞죠? 지 사제 찍라 빼는 거서 조선로와 조선로 공부로와. 당연만로는 혼바자고 그러와. 혼바지압네. 초랑 챔 되네마 동치네. 다 트레이너 공자간 도기. 트레이너 냠나 지간 도기. 트레이너 다 바기라 초소런 도기 공발란 도기 선배 로티 제제네. 되네 빼나죠. 혼바 dünya 되네. 제 원이티 메리트 소남 베니피트 베 칠인데 말에 송도와 빼나 혼바 dünya 텐리키 베용 다다는 거죠.
So it's also said that, so even if, like, for instance, we go walking and we like walk, miles, but actually it's said that with the intention of, today I'm going to go to the Dharma center or, the monastery, I'm going to go to the temple and I'm going to meditate, that the thought, even just the thought of today I'm going to do practice, today I'm going to meditate, and even taking 7 steps in the direction, of where it is that you're going to practice is such like limitless merit, that the benefit and merit that comes from that is more extensive than like walking miles for some other purpose.
제가 너 이게 다 가서 듣자 모르 양 참상 가서다 빼나 사다나로 로그 요르와 빼나 만다와 요래 갈세나 다 빼나 차샤위나 직tenki 차와디 가레 슬라비나 되네 빼나 다 가서 되네지 빼나 삼노라고 당지 되네 아이 디삼노 땅거 추티 다 선발로로 용 거래 빼나 간디 지거를 라비나 빼나 가서 다 in the Buddha Dharma and Oyana Sanji Jodan Sojin Jonam Jan Yoga the Dana Jefferson Jan Dagi Jinsoji Sonam Gilabdi Kuchi ta Semke Rangi Nilo Tel Tigantati is my Pabgi or that. Roa Chico Tangi Contua Nagirico Karsena Nyumobek layered Mewaroji, Sama Kitties, Killer Doji. In a Tigana in Yamlachi in Ekala, Sanji in the Buddha Dharma, the water huge bed the Tabochine or the Buddha Dharma, or Karin Tondatindi, some tongue marwa, Kari language Tibet, in a ritual meaning, Hakonari, Magonari, same a hope of net, other church you, some bandojik, some gene, Pena in the Buddha Dharma Labicalatine, Cook Carson Rangi, Nilo, same nature take on the Spalibgioris. Ko karsan ti ke ta obscuration ta yungu yomarwa.
So also, with some, we have all these different methods of practice in this tradition, and one of them is there's a lot of recitation. So for instance, like the recitation of sadhana or mantra or prayers, and actually when we think about, say, for instance, what happens to the mind when we recite one prayer, like if we recite, for instance, in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all beings. When we recite that, there's something that happens in the mind, like we settle in, and the mind gets kind of closer to its true nature. There's just a natural settling that happens. The mind becomes like a little bit clear. And there isn't even much required. It's not like you have to even entirely be fully conscious of what you're saying, or, analyze, what are the qualities of the Buddha? What are the qualities of the Dharma? What are the qualities of the Sangha? Even without this, even without reflecting upon the meaning, the mind just kind of relaxes and it turns toward, I'm taking this time or this moment to practice Dharma. It's like the focus becomes that inner spiritual practice. And in that single recitation, the mind gets a little bit more connected to, or a little more rooted in its true nature. It becomes relaxed, it becomes open, and there's like a degree of, kind of less, the less obscuration is present.
That less obscuration scenario, Yumba, Getanga to same layer, in the same layer, Maritanga the same Jula, Carriores Huvina, same Corala, same Rangi, Corala, Chebakaya Mari. Benacha Shavina, Tezungdua, not to Sanji, same quality, Kanyo, not to Julie Yorewa. Your reading in a young, not to Sanji Chayo Mari, Carre Slavina, Machaviki Jumzante, Natsuk Jula, that Namto Huji or number Topa. Number Topa the Koran Pena Peta, that's how much also. I think we're talking about a lot of, like, example, Europe and Dawadong, Timba Lagore. Pena Semjika Rangiti, Dave Rangiroa, Pena Dave Rangiri, Lagore, Pena Wusewa, Koran Davi, Yoriti, Yinayan, Taji Nam Pena Timba Mambo, take the winner, Kondave or Rangi Wusewa, Tongumarwa, or Peta Nangike, Tangatsuki, Jig. Same Jula Rangi Tendiji Wusewa, Yontan Chatan, then there were Tendiji Yoriti, Yinayan, Tike Karsina, Tadon Sem Rangi Wusewa, the Tonto Gomari, Jimsen Karsina, Natota, obscuration scenery, number Doctor Martani, Behansan Tubo, Benangato Tendawa, Tini, Benan Samsam, Betimba Trek, Charwa Jab, Tinichi Gabla, Betimba Totani, Nimayona, Tongomari, Timbayona Tongo Nakungawa. That Tenayike, Nazo Jula, Tontoguyo Maris. Timid that hanging a chuchi wiki peon carrio lavin, Pena chuti kichi, Tandat Contuana in the Buddha Dharma Sangha Rode. Could he meaning the rain degree to many Hakon and degree, Tonda meaning the Kalana, same Nego. same name choran ben Tibetan Sanji, Jordan, Jojin, Jonan, last chick Tindy, Maton, choran that Tibetan Higmari, Tigeta, meaning Hakon, not big deal. Yin that tongue, T two tilla, Tinny same this nigota. Same name we got la, Tank Contiban ye, Taco, Tangi get Timba de Be, Tubo, Hansan, Tubo Tiniji Yori. The Yinaya, got this chick, that Timba Yendo, something do up, Timba take Tinian, something Yamado, this Hergidoa, and the Dawaton doa. What a tenor ye get, Tinichi, T near Capitalian, got Timba this, got temporary Yendo, that Timba, this Tongo, Lolo, Rogi, Listen Jaco. Same the Cotamado, Samachaco, that and I eat another Dombaton bina dire, Dombaton bake to in binare. Then Jerem Gombeke to in binare, Tegana ye get in it. Of course, the Comjabi to Suina, what a tea neka neka, Mazota, Jixem Krangi this tongue your Tindi Chine, da Nyamlen Tiki Tatalam.
So this word obscuration. So what is it that is being meant? That is meant here. So in our tradition, the view is that actually the true nature of our mind is primordially perfected. That actually it is the awakened, that of the awakened nature. That our true essence has all of the enlightened qualities of Buddhahood already there, already present as our true, authentic, intrinsic nature or essence. But we can't see that nature. Why can't we see that nature? Because we have obscurations. Those obscurations are actually mainly a lot of thoughts, a lot of concepts. And those thoughts and concepts cloud that true essence. And so we can't see. So the example that many of you are well familiar with, that is often given, is that of the moon and clouds. So like if the true nature of the mind is like the radiance of the moon, and the moon is there shining in the sky, yet if there are a lot of clouds present, we can't see the moon, we can't see its radiance. But then when those clouds disperse, then we can see clearly what has always been there, which is the full radiance of the moon. And so that is also, what it's like with the true essence of our awareness. And, the true nature of the mind is endowed with the qualities of the awakened awareness, the clear light, the moon, that's sort of this, with this analogy of moonlight, the kind of luminosity of intrinsic awareness. But we can't see that because of the presence of obscuration, because there are too many thoughts all the time that are clouding that nature. And yet when those clouds disperse, and sometimes they're not always the same, like sometimes the cloud cover becomes a little bit thinner and the radiance kind of shines through, sometimes it's thicker, like sometimes, for instance, in the daytime you can have like really thick clouds and you can't see the sun at all. You can't, it's even kind of dark because there's so many clouds. So in the same way, when we have strong obscurations in the mind, then those kind of qualities that are maybe shining through at other times to a greater extent become less visible. So what is then the benefit of spiritual practice? So with this example of just, for instance, reciting the single prayer in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha and so forth, if we know the meaning of that, then that's fine. If we don't know the meaning of that, and we even recite it in Tibetan, he said, and so of course we don't know what we're saying when we recite it in Tibetan, it's not even such a big deal. The main thing is that, when we recite that prayer, the mind is resting a little bit. We're becoming kind of disengaged with our thoughts. and we're relaxing. The body is relaxed, the mind is relaxed, and in that, and the mind is turning inward in pure intention and pure motivation, and the intention to engage in spiritual practice. And in that, then the obscurations of the mind become thinner. They kind of disperse a little bit, and we can see some of the qualities, the innate qualities shining through. So it's like the temporary cloud cover has dispersed somewhat, and we can see a little bit. We can see some glimmers of those intrinsic qualities. And that's really what's happening here is there's a settling of awareness, a dropping into, that true essence, or that kind of relaxed abiding, which allows, for some clearing away of temporary obscuration. And this is what happens when we engage in any of the different practices, whether we're doing recitation, whether we're practicing the generation stage, reciting mantra, and of course when we're meditating.
오다 디인도 당이 konsuwa nang yere ta ngazo hwachaji hyagro tindri ji tene pena nyamlen chi bi ne khala ro ko ta nyamlen maji ngula khari lawina ngazo ta take chloride ro be heavy chloride no chi yang nyamlen chi bi ne khala yang ko de ji nyom be ke tin so ti spa thang yang tene yang jing kore na cha ya chi yang nyom ba na tene ji di yang ko ti sia tho ro ta tene ji di ko ta de timba to tho ro ro nyom to so ma ro ro
Gadu.
ta nyamlen ma ji ne khala oda tene ji ne ta nga so nyam nyo sa ala ro back forth ro many times ro tene ji ta tene ji di 다 당본로 이나 ngazo chunyamle ta samba chigunare gomba chigionare khandi imbinayo koti stis chikta chikta nimangone hyargyo marwa chikti stis sebodo tis yungyore rowa intene ya nyamle chi kala tene tamayang tene ko karsena chik onen samsang chik rowa pena sagen ka hindo tene chik tendinda ola tene ta nima hyargyo rowa 고 띵서 당겨요. 야, 되네. 야, 고 띵바요. 야, 이나야 띵바 다 냠래치네. 타마데 고 띵바요리 디나야 띵바데 고 dark chlorino 요마로. 요음부터서 티스 세워노. 다 니마양 통구마레 나와양 통구마레 얘나야 고 갈세나지 티 세워도지다. 티스 틴데 고 틴데 용그레스. 다 틴데 칼레 진트네. 다직 타말라 뭐저 냠len 치비네 칼라 대용구도 냠자나 제도업세야 용거래 되네 다직 냠자 갑라 되네 원년 니마 통구요로 와 녀또 녀mombe 독소데 고 원도 통구요래 되네 야 제도업 갑라 직단 직단 그러에 나와야 통통구 말와 오다 틴디 제도업 갑라 되네 통구 말와
가리 통기요 말해. 니마
통구 말와 용 초랑 그러 와 오다 든리 지네 다 강하다리야 progression 되네 지 효체를 니마 효체를 전로네 다 타마데 고지 completely 고 당야게 고가 든리데 요사레스
So also sometimes what we often refer to, this process of practice as being one where we're creating stronger and stronger imprints, karmic imprints. And so what happens, and this is how also this kind of gradual progression occurs, is that, so for instance, when we're not practicing And then the clouds, there's just thick cloud cover, right? So we just have full on obscuration. And then when we practice, then those clouds become thinner. They clear away a little bit. The cloud cover is not as thick. And there's like a little bit of light shining through. And so this is like, for instance, so when we practice and we kind of either become aware of all the afflictive emotions in the mind stream, and eventually then the afflictive emotions actually become less as a result of the practice. But then when we're not practicing, then they come back. So there's a lot of back and forth, like first, so we practice, we see, we have some diminishment of obscuration. There's some light shining through. Then we, get involved in our kind of ordinary worldly habits, and like all the obscurations come back. But each time we meditate, each time we practice, then there's like that is kind of facilitating more and more dispersal of the clouds. And as we continue to practice, then the innate qualities of the mind become brighter and brighter. They shine through to a greater extent. And then, there's... but so, and ultimately, so, and as we practice, like maybe, we don't fully see the clouds, or we don't fully see the sun, but we see the light of the sun. And then like, as we, in our post meditation, or like when we're engaged in the world and we've kind of forgotten about practice, and then like the clouds come back and it's, maybe very dark. But what happens in both cases, and there's still like this division between, what happens when we practice and what happens when we're like engaged in our ordinary activities. And there's a division, but what happens is both end up becoming kind of less and less governed by obscuration. And there's more and more like insight or ability to see kind of the qualities, or have the pure, drop into the like purity of our true nature when we're actually meditating, or when we're actually practicing. And then when we're not practicing, like those kind of obscurations come back, but maybe not as strong as they were before. Like the cloud cover is not as thick as it was. But there's still like this back and forth, quite a bit. And then eventually, there is more of an evening out that happens between meditation and post-meditation. And so like maybe in meditation, for instance, you get to a point where you really see the sun. You can fully see the sun and all its, radiance. But in the post-meditation, you don't see the sun. There's that the afflictive emotions come back, but you've seen the sun, so it's there. And the radiance is stronger, even that you can kind of maintain in the post-meditation. There's still the arising of the afflictive emotions, but there is awareness of what actually lies beneath them. And so it's a progression like this. And essentially what's happening is that, the light of the sun will gradually get stronger and stronger.
Tene ta eventually ro te thamala nga nyamji nimi to par change lo tene ji tangi nyamja ga ji go ma yin ba ya ji top ga la tene ne to go yung yo sa res.
And then eventually there's a total merging, total fusion between meditation and post-meditation. So the experience that occurs in meditative absorption is then carried into, everyday activity, that there really isn't any difference there.
Oda tiga na yita te somo tang gre nga zo di namba sanji be ke chodla way of life. Ta yang che chima ro jigo ke chamare. Karsena nga zo ta thande ki ne kawla thangi khond huwa na jere ko kange te nge de nyom momba yin bare. Ti nyom momba yin du ti nyom momba de nga zo gom jawa ta nyamlan chi wi ki ne ba la tene ko khale tene yen ro gres khale ta mewa cha gres. Te chawi na tene tsendela lu da sem jala ta ko de chin jung ya ke hen ro ji cha de yor wa so
And so this is how, often Buddhism is said to be not so much a religion as it is a way of life. And the reason why that this is the case is because it provides us with methods for working with the afflictions, that cause us difficulty and hardship. And through these methods that we practice, in Buddhism, then we clear away, gradually, we clear away the pain of the afflictions. And as a result of that, there is more like a greater quality of life, or happiness and well-being that then we experience in our lives.
오다 대가 나지게 양 단다 콘티오나 예리 지 background 오다 줄로지 빌리 간디나 제바 요 말이스. 가르스나 보다 내자데 고 보다 내자 대가 랑리스 초랑디 지 간디제게 삼구유나 제바 칸요 말이스.
The
베나 줄로로 선노 땅비나 다 줄로지글라 지게 가가요 줄로지라 가 티게차 말이스. 내추럴리로와 La Karena, Buddha nature, Chebakanyo Maris.
And so this Buddha nature, this is like the true nature that he was referring to, which is actually our intrinsic nature. That doesn't change, and it doesn't really matter what our background is or what religion we follow. There isn't it isn't actually a question of like religion or spiritual tradition. It's just actually the way that things are, so the Buddha nature is kind of independent of that, independent of like philosophy and rebe, traditions.
Tiga naji ta ngaso ti focus karchi isno chu believe ji be Buddhism in Christianity tikesha kanyo mars. Ta ngaso ti na nyamlen che ya ti kanye su tek do lawina ngaso nyom ba ti tek do. 오다 디 뇽몽바데고 당로야 어텔 다 냠나치아레스.
And so this is where really the Buddhist practice kind of transcends religion. Whether we choose to believe in Christianity, whether we choose to believe in sort of like the Buddhist concepts of, spirituality, we can all identify what is it, who is the one that's really giving us difficulty in our lives? And if we look, we can all pretty much agree that it's the afflictive emotions. And so the practice is to actually just purify the mind, to actually, to diminish the afflictions, the afflictive emotions that cause us difficulty and hardship.
디인데 딱 가서 들어가나 이게 데려와 지 샘게 되지 토비아지 차디요레스 샘 되지 토비나 다 디초바레스.
So the objective of spiritual practice is really to develop, well-being and happiness within, in the mind.
이나타테 토비아라 곰자바나 토구요서와.
But there have to be methods to achieve that. And so really the best method is meditation.
타테 토비나 타네 초나 게 로게고 차나 대기요사리 나나 대기요사리 가서 나야 메와 소야 요마레 로게고 차야 메와 소야 요마레 고 강이 메와티 지 physically 메와 소야 요마레 디나야 고 샘게 냠래지 니 템보 차비나 되네 고 가르스나 파디오케 강이 드솔이야 노 마토베티니 용구요사레스.
And so, we are all going to experience, illness at some point, or our experience, or old age, or physical difficulties. And so, we can't avoid sickness. We can't avoid, or in some cases we can, but there is, we will, like, we can't necessarily get rid of sickness. We can't necessarily get rid of old age. We can't, avoid necessarily physical problems, but what we can really control is the well-being of the mind. Dini di semla gari.
다 셈나 고 셈나 되고요나 셈나 내도요나 되니 고 쪼바지 레벨 가와지 요레스.
And if the mind is well, if there's well-being, balance, and happiness in the mind, then that also greatly affects the body.
So that is, I think, very, very important, so we cannot control, aging, sickness, or even the death, So that is nature. We cannot stop, naturally comes. So if really we familiar in the practice, so then if you're really familiar, practice, you familiar meditations, then actually it doesn't matter. So if you feels aging, you be still happy, relax. Or maybe, of course, one day we sick, still, no change. You're happy, Of course, maybe one day we can walk, If we lack or we don't lack, but that comes. And same way, so then we will, die, There are no choice, no choice, We cannot stop aging, death, or sickness, so on. So, but we can, no matter how comes, situation which is difficulties, so we able to counter their problems, their difficulties, So it is that that's true. So the practitioners really doesn't matter in the mind. Yes, of course, they're physically, maybe they're sick, maybe they are, they can die, they can become old. Because this is composed by the 5 elements.
The body is composed of the 5 elements.
So there's no choice. But we have choice that this mind, if the mind is stable, the inner experience, the practice, so then you never lose the joyful, peaceful, no matter your comes, your situation is good.
No matter what comes.
Right, so you're okay, you're happy, Sometimes, this is just, we call sometimes samsara, so this sometimes maybe the external circumstance, not easy. Maybe there are problems, maybe there's difficulties. But same time, your mind is okay, still be happy. You externally there's maybe problem, but your strength is powerful, not in fact from the external problems. Or even though you know problems, even though you're sick, still you happy. Sometimes they're more joyful. You understand the karma cause effects. So everything that you understand interdependence. So no matter if they are practitioners, if real practitioners, okay. The real practitioner means we have experience, okay, inner practice, So we have inner practice, then we are okay, We're not losing, peace, happy, and joy. No matter, I say, whatever going on, physically, externally, something going on, but you not changing the inner strength, inner peace.
Your inner strength doesn't waver.
Right, no change. Yes, of course, I say this, externally is changing all the time, Weather is changing, situation is changing, political is changing. But their own, practitioner own experience, happy and peace and strength is not changing, So that's why I think it's very, very important. Yes, of course, we important. We have to have job, have to have money, we have to have server. Yes, of course. But that's not only that. So that's like, yes, kind of
one piece, you know. But more important piece still we need to do. So that is the, you know, practice. So yes, of course, we no money, we have to eat. If you know no food, it's difficult, you know, suffering. And also maybe no clothing. If you cannot pay the bill, there are problems, you know. So those things, the one thing you have to have, you know, those things. But at the same time, just only focus these. Then still, you okay, you pay the bills, you okay, you food and clothing, you eat up, but you're not really the authentic, you know, peace happy, you don't have. So yes, we have, on one hand, yes, of course, those important, and at the same time, we call spiritual, you know, practice. So this, the important. So this spiritual practice is not this life. Yes, of course, must benefit this life, and as well as, you know, benefits continuation under enlightenment. So we have, you know, so actually we are, I think we are really lucky. So we have causal conditions like together, so we can do practice. You know, we can able to practice, and also this, yeah, we have Dharma and so on. So.
There's a question from Zoom. It's a little bit of a longer question. There's two parts, so if you don't mind, I'll just hand it over to Virginia. She can read it. So I took a picture of it here, Virginia.
Okay, thank you.
So there's this one, and then once this one is finished, you can just scroll to that one.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Sure thing. If you read it in English too, so everyone can hear it, people might identify with it too.
Read it in English? Oh, yeah,
And then
okay.
also it helped the Drupon
Yeah, yeah.
understand it.
So the question is, for lay persons in contemporary context life, usually revolves around the continuous striving for financial security, the accumulation of material wealth, gain and possessions, and monetary resources in general. And the majority of time and mental bandwidth is devoted to achieving this aim, typically by necessity. Without these resources and the leisure they afford, the means to engage in formal religious activity becomes prohibitive. Given this dilemma, what advice should be given to those who wish to practice but have difficulty summoning the motivation? There are some of us who, lacking merit, find it difficult to access the motivation sufficient to cut through inertia and stagnation of resignation, lethargy, and depression that makes the pursuit of Dharma possible. Cutting through that, he's saying, makes the pursuit of Dharma possible. So for those who struggle to find the spark of inspiration during periods of torpor, what are some good strategies to shift the energy and cut through discouragement? So that's the first part. Maybe the first part.
Definitively, yes, sir. The kangi yoris, the jubeha mivina.
Well, chitang dangpo nuni chini de la namba ni yore de la yang gain sana mangchewa nuni denda yang denda de gadu yena de pesha sago denda yang kunong rawa yorwa pena yang denda go yore gain sana yang tapshi meba nangshin yena yang pena di yore dang chok shimala kashe yang pe gare la unyobdo rawo cha ne tini yang sim shung ne tini yang tesa kale kad ne nune dendati oh nga nyamlin che go kunlong che ya tes kale kabo rawo cha ge orawa
Kipeha to na insamarwa.
pesha dunda. So I think what we're struggling with is what is the connection between the first part of the question that's talking about the constant strive to gain to secure financial stability and maintain and gain material wealth, and then the second part of the question that's talking more about discouragement in practice.
Right, so he put this in two parts. So I think the first part of that first question is addressed
In the second question, okay.
So just that part is
Oh, okay.
about the torpor and difficulty of finding inspiration and motivation.
Okay.
I can clarify.
다 당보텔레 잡사요
So,
사리스.
no, the dangbo de jela yang driwa shimba chek nang la le gre. Yine yang di gi driwa chogo den da de sem nyopdo dang de
really.
nyamche yagi donyer shirab me pala.
그래 다 가서 데려와. 제타 이나다고 interesting 도와. 뉴토 세야디 고직 유제 기티 샤조 강요 말이스. 이내야 당가서 지 금디도 오지 지네 고뉴토 차 시그레스로와. 이나
Jimse me pa.
이내야 다디 야 조초다야 메와 말이스로와. 디스칼리 카보요레 이나 고뉴토 메야 소야데 랑크 소토 그레스.
So it's interesting, he said, because sometimes these feelings that you're describing, like apathy, lethargy, like a lack of interest in practice, this sometimes happens for no reason at all. It's just kind of like arises. There's not something we can point to and say this
So
is
big or
why.
small, actually everybody have, yes.
And everybody struggles with that. But it is kind of especially a situation where it really is up to us to cut through it. It's not like external circumstance based. And so, yeah.
They take time, but we, can change, slowly. So because of this is or laziness, whatever, what is lethargy,
Laziness or
laziness,
lethargy,
whatever,
yeah.
this is just one thing. So because if somebody gives, somebody counter, then we cannot fix, right? Because rely on the external things, but that's not just inside on, So that one hand is like interesting, right? So really diligent or laziness is whatever your goes, your own hand. But take time.
Instead of laziness, let's say lethargy or apathy. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, discourage, So this,
Just a lack of
so that's a
motivation.
concept, not a concept. This kind of really is that this we call whatever afflict emotions or concept, not easy, So which is kind of familiar habit, So they take time. You cannot change. Oh yeah, that's not good. I can change. I can stop those things. May not work, But you eventually work. So I think you're talking about this morning, same thing, right? So you meditate. So this very heavy, you have, a concept, very thick. It is like thick cloudy, but you
Thick clouds.
keep going, and look up, light, calm, and less, heavy clouds. Eventually you can see the same thing, like whatever, individually different. Some people are more, actually really is that this afflict emotions or issues, problems. It's just nature. Everybody has. Everybody, okay? We never ever find, that's except somebody achieved enlightenment already. But otherwise, everybody has problems, okay? That's okay. That's nature because we're born here, If you really know wrong things, no issues, no problems, everything's perfect, but maybe different realms, we're not here, But that's just nature, but same time, we're working on whatever, individually a little bit different, somebody more lazy, some people maybe more angry, some more jealousy, some people maybe worry. That's nature. But individually, whatever your problems, you focus.
Whatever is like your particular propensity or is especially like difficult for you, you kind of focus on working
you
with
can
that.
change. So this, in order to change, two different ways to change. You really want to change. It's not really one day, not only one time. You cannot change. You're really diligent, You first maybe you think, oh yeah, that didn't change, not work,
It doesn't work.
Doesn't work,
I'm still the same.
No, they work, yes. You keep going, keep going, So really is the work. The reason is you can go to destination like, maybe far away like 100 miles. So you think one step, really nothing looks like, right? But you one step.
One step
Is you
closer.
1 foot is shorter than you 100 miles, you 2 steps. You 2 feet shorter than 100 miles. They work. But looks like maybe you start, maybe not working, Or say like, 100 miles, but 2 feet doesn't matter, not big deal. Yeah, or maybe one hand is not big deal, but one hand is, yes, much shorter than 2 feet already, So that way is you really confident. And the 2 ways. One way is not pushing, but you have to continuations. And then also kind of you have to confident. Because they said precious human love, you are intelligent human being. You have confidence, I can change. That's more kind of foundation. So you have temporarily whether you looks like can change or not, but you have confidence. And the routine, diligent, Okay?
Oh, and then the second question. So the second part of this question, for those who have a lot of responsibility, as well as those who are striving to improve their circumstances by achieving financial security, it feels that the near entirety of one's mental and energetic resources ought to be committed to work, career, and making money. Considering this, in Drupon's opinion, what percentage of our efforts, energy, and focus ought to be allocated to or earmarked for Dharma practice? What is the proper proportion or guideline? So the jacha. Jacha jigdin yang tindangato yang responsibility la gatse jako gere jacha the nyamlen cheala jacha gatse jako gere. Shigitena?
Yes, I said this before, so it's very important, career, education, work, so that's very important. Also, Buddha said, if you say chena, so on ches ungdo, lun ches. Lun chena, dine? Tachana so no shimba dang degdo.
No,
Lun
some no
chena,
tanga shimba
ale
tanga
say
I'm
chena,
trying to figure out.
so lun ches, lun chena chuan ches ungdo.
Yangchar?
Tati kanda ten diksari, ben se mina, tine lu yagbo yung mares.
Oh, zemina. Okay.
Tine lu yagbo mina chu yagbo yung marwa.
Oh, okay. So the Buddha has said, that if we don't have proper nutrition, if we don't have enough food, like we won't be physically healthy. Our body won't be healthy. And if our body isn't healthy, we can't practice the Dharma.
So this kind of same way. So we think, I do the, just only practice the spiritual, that's important. Okay, this samsaric thing, this work, education, not big deal. No, that's big deal. So you have to have education, you have to have the job, you have to have a career, You're okay to survive, And then you can do the Dharma practice, The otherwise, no money, no job, you're really struggling. And the top of that, you cannot practice Dharma either. Because you too much difficulties already, So that Dharma is kind of extra difficulties. So also, particularly, younger, yes, more like 75% you really focus this life, your education, your career, your job, make money, And then become older, then the more and more, then Dharma spiritual. Then maybe you're okay, your finance not really struggling, you're okay. Then you're more practice, more percentage, 50%, 75% the practice. So like for instance, if you something retire, you enough money, then really you focus, 90% you could Dharma practice, spiritual part, So I think this kind of different or age or different circumstances, also individually, So yeah, if issues in the finance, yeah, of course that's good, not struggling
Ajá,
with the finance, and then yeah, you can do whatever you can,
exactamente.
70 percentage, 80
Terminamos,
percentage,
María.
you really focus, spiritual dharma practice. So, but if you don't, so really is the if particularly you are younger, then you're more focused. It's a 75 percentage or 60 percentage. You work first, survive your situation, So then this later on you become order, so that Dharma practice. So sometimes I see, so if you're younger, if you don't have those finance or jobs and education, career, and then it's really is that this the future, Dharma either, so you become really old, you try to get job and maybe not good job, you know, there you really focus there, so this how you practice a Dharma, so the physically is, I say, the physically is changing naturally. This is everybody, if we lack or we don't lack, how is everybody knows that it become older, how is if you're 20 years old, your job, and you're the 60 years old job, maybe same job, is how is the different, So yeah, so I think so depending, so.
So is that clear for everyone? Okay. Oh, someone has a question. Do we need the?
Yep.
So when you say we need to focus on the practice,
We have people online, so we have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Venerable Drupon Lama, and so I have a question. So when you say we have to focus on the practice, what do you mean? What shall we focus on during the practice?
Right. So this practice actually. So one hand is whatever practice, that's okay. So this, I think, a general answer, but also individually same time. So this some people actually is the kind of most important practice is like progression, the stages like Ngondo and so on. So up to the we are here at this five-fold path of Mahamudra. So that's just, I think, if you can, so that's just kind of important, best. But however, so this also other ways, practice, whatever depends your time. So yeah, some like simple practice, Jirense practice, Dharma practice, meditation, so that's okay too.
So among, following up question, so among all these different practices we need to focus on, is there like one practice you would recommend most that can keep us not being away from the Dharma path, especially for us who are deeply contaminated by the clouds, our mental afflictions in our modern time?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I said before, you can go to.
So he's talking about the Ngundro practice, or that's a word in Tibetan, or there's these sets of preliminary practices.
And also this we can step by step for five or the path of Mahamudra.
And then there's what's called the fivefold path of
I
Mahamudra.
think it really is that this sometimes here is difficult. So I think this Ngundro practice, and that's good. If you're not, so like one deity, your daily practice. So the daily practice, whatever you Dharma practice or Jirense practice or Jagasamvara practice, so there is the two sessions, right? So we have like, maybe there are many two different, but the two things like generation stage and completion stage. So whatever generation, recitation, and then this the completion stage. So this can combine together. So
So-
that is the kind of daily practice. So
So just to kind of recap what he said, so there is kind of a traditional progression of practice that is, first you do what are called the preliminaries, and those are done in different sections, and they're done kind of one at a time. And then once that's completed, you move into also another sequence of practices, which is called the Fivefold Path of Mahamudra. This is a little like a kind of commitment and a long path of, practice. It takes a while. So he's saying if you have time, if you have the ability, it's best, to, if you can, to enter that progression of practice and to do it step by step. If you don't, he said, then there are all these different deity practices. You can choose any deity, meditational deity to focus on. He said whether, like for instance, Tara or Chenrezig, and whatever deity that you practice, whether Tara, Chenrezig, or Chakrasamvara, which is the deity in the Fivefold Path of Mahamudra, there are two sections in that practice. There's what's referred to as the generation stage, which is the visualization of the deity's form and the recitation of the mantra. And then there's what's referred to as the completion stage, which is where the visualization dissolves and then you rest in kind of unelaborated meditative absorption. And that's called the completion stage. So if you practice a particular deity, then it has these two parts, these two aspects, generation stage and completion stage. So you can do either one. I mean, either one, either deity or the progressive stages of the path.
and also I think not only your question. So also I said every Dharma practice familiarization. So yes, the formal, right? Formal practice.
Formal practice.
Formal practice, you sit, follow the sadhana. So if you can, that's good. But if not, so really is that this remind again, you kind of yourself, remember the Buddha, or maybe whatever you practice, the Yidam deity, that's kind of remind again, you remember. And also, whatever you practice, recitation, whatever you are, or mani padme hum, again. So really, is that this, or realization, or whatever, or in Latin, really depends how much you're familiar, Really is, so I saying this, really you familiar, or whatever, compassion, or familiar deity, familiar recitations, and then you really got familiar, they called practitioners, I said before, then you're okay, you're sick, you die, always with you. But we don't have the familiar, so that's actually maybe challenges, problems. So reason is, okay, we can really say, okay, we cannot walk, right? Maybe you cannot see. And then, if you're not familiar, you forget it, you have problems. You're sick, you cannot walk, you cannot take care of ourselves. So there are issues, there are problems. And then, that time is, you look the sadhanas, you just position straight, meditation. You cannot, So that's very difficult. And then there's kind of difficulties, problems, one after another, So difficult. But right now, we're preparing like familiar. So familiar, So then after like a situation, maybe you cannot read, but you are familiar. Within yourself, doesn't matter, you no need read. You no need look at this sadhana.
The sadhana, he's saying.
Right. So you need to use straight positions, you close, no. Whatever you lay down, whatever in the bed, so you're okay. So also like, for example, many I think practitioners like particular, power practice. So sometimes even though even though cannot talk, but he can look at the power text, so sort of like bring here, so somebody, bring there. So that's it, done. That's it. He remember power. You're familiar. So we are practice, okay, this recitation or what is the lineage lamas, spiritual lineage lama, go through like hours, take time. But no, you don't need, you're familiar. So just 1 second you remember. Also I saying this familiar, remember you again, Buddha, again, Buddha. So you moment thing, maybe you think, oh, I'm dying now, So that moment you can remember the Buddha, that's it, done. So civic, these practice generation stages, completion stages, no need anything. This we are just really is we call practice, right? Mm-hmm. Not on one hand, that's not really what is not real, but what call this sort of practice,
it's
not
not
real
like
job.
the performance, but it's the
Right,
practice
so we can just,
for the
yes, of
performance
course,
or
right now we
something.
practice, okay, how familiar, how visualization, how to recitation, what it means, and this and that, But this is not really actual thing. The different realization. So even though we can say, oh, Buddha Dharma, what means Buddha, this Shakyamuni, oh, Dharma means this. Yeah, on one hand, we thinking this meaning, like 3 jewels, but not really is that this the real meaning. So real meaning is familiar within your mind, connected. So that's real, So we explain it, oh, what means this one, what means this one, yeah, sort of like relative level, yes, they are meaning different, but the ultimate level is that's not that, or it's not real meaning. So we are doing things that even though this is not real, actually. So we can't be familiar.
So practice itself is like a process of familiarizing. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we can recite the dedication prayer on page 24 of the prayer book. Bottom of the page. By the virtues collected in the 3 times, by myself and all beings and samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Drikungpa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Thank you so much for coming,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Right, so that's next weekend, the Holiness Chaitanya, which is a power teaching in the New York. So we provide for Zoom link, so if you like, so.
So His Holiness Chetsang Rinpoche will be teaching to the Tibetan community actually in New York City this next weekend, but that people are welcome to attend online, and the Zoom link will be provided if you would like to join. just gonna bring a couple these things upstairs, and then, yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's probably fine. 7:30, depending on what happens. Okay, yeah, maybe we can do that. We'll see. Yeah, they love each other. It's amazing. Just biological. And she puts in the effort too. In a good way. She's really it's true. Yeah. I'll let you know. Both of you guys, yeah. I mean, a little bit of personal, a little bit of business, and a little bit of practice. So, no, personal, business, and practice. Okay, wait. So, with Drupon, no, not necessarily. I mean, how about this? How about like, maybe I can come up and bring a logo tire up or something, and then I can come up and talk with you at Drupon for 15 minutes, and then you and me can go for a walk. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Is that what I can Yeah, that's what I. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like an hour. Yeah.
extinction or exhaustion of the self and the world, right? So nobody wants that kind of a religion. That sounds bad, right? So if you think about it not as self or, the world phenomena, but if you think more about going away from that materialist into being, which is a verb, not a noun, not self, but being, that kind of avoids a lot of the automatic problems we fall into, because then you don't have to worry about, what do you do
same thing, it's just he's not really a fellow Buddhist, but it was a communication struggle getting a hold. And after I talked to him, I think he's friends with the other guy. Absolutely, because like he was super engagement at first, and then right after I talked to the guy Alex, the guy that we really like, the communication stopped. So I think they kind of talked to each other, and then when I talked to the other guy, he's like, hey, if you don't go with me, that's no big deal. I'm a good resource, you know, and all this stuff. He like already had his head that we were probably doing something else. But they're both kind of the same price. It's like $2 to $4 grand is what he says. It includes come here, he'll come here, he's gonna take a drone up, take pictures, and then he's gonna do here and here first.
Oh, okay. So
Just here and here. Yes, just here and here. And then he will design exactly what we want, and then we can revise it up to 2 times. But he's gonna gather all our information, and then he's gonna design what for the best success, and then we can adjust it from there. And then that includes him consulting us the whole process and giving us tons of information. 100%, 100%. And he's available on weekends. He prefers weekends, which is even better.
Does he have like come out calls? Like
Yes, he can.
Costs,
Yes. So both of them kind of do, when I'm doing research, they kind of have like an a la carte type of situation, where they'll come out and do another consult for like $250. They'll come out here and spend a day with you, whatever you need. But he's saying, you know, we can pick up the phone and call him, and you know, he's down for advice. Especially, he really wants to get this product.
So have you seen his work?
Yes.
Like his yard, his project?
Both places have things we can go visit right now. So he has the Florida Nature Coast University. That's what's the name?
Florida Gulf Coast.
Florida Gulf Coast. So they have a permaculture there, and he's in charge of that.
Oh wow.
So
that's cool.
or I'm gonna charge, or he's heavily involved in that.
Well,
he gave me
over
the
here, and then there's a
Yes.
part of Atlantic. But either probably Gulf Coast. Yeah.
It's the Gulf Nature Coast. Nature Coast. I got it. I have it written down. And he gave us other places we can go visit if we want to go visit and go see his work. This guy, the other guy, Howie in the Hills, he just took over a farm, an old farm, and he's only been there for 7 months. But he has stuff he can show us and visit us. But his forte is more, after talking to him, is more fruit trees and stuff like that. Is more his forte. This other guy is symbiotic relationship and like getting things to go. The main reason to talk to these people was to vibe check them.
Yeah.
And both of them vibe very well, but Alex, the guy that's filmed it, I mean, he is excited and wants to be
Good.
and they're both kind of the same price. They're both the same price. The only benefit to the other guy is he's an hour closer, but he's only available on Saturdays, is what he says. But regardless, if this happens, he's a good resource to use because he has connections on every aspect and he has things himself. So if we don't use him to consult, he's still a good resource. And like I said, like everybody knows each other in this world. Where I guarantee you they already know each other. You know.
So I guess I'm imagining how this would work. So he comes here, he looks at it, he gives you basically a blueprint of what's possible here, and then he'll give us like a write-up of how to
implement it. Yes, kind of like
He'll give us advice on the phone if we're learning the problem.
100%. He's going to give us paperwork of everything. Also, he'll be able to explain everything, and he's there to help us implement and maintain it.
What about budgeting?
He can give us a good idea. Talking to them, I said, I think to do both of these, looking probably 20. I mean, 40 grand would be awesome if we get 40 grand. I think we can raise 40 grand easily once we have a plan, to be honest. And he says, you
once
do.
people see what's possible.
Exactly.
Like they have to, because you tell them permaculture, you tell them gardening, and they're like, well, that's nice, like a couple of beds of tomatoes, but if you give them
Exactly. So that's why I kept asking, is there somewhere to visit or do something?
photographs or something.
Yeah. So we have places we can visit people. My thought process, a route I see to get there would be, I was thinking about just asking everyone around here to raise
some of the funds, then there might be a good reason for the center to say, okay, here's $100 or something. Especially because the property can be used, and then you talk to the board and see if they're okay with it. And
Yes,
okay, yeah,
so that's the main thing of the conversation is
or at least
we're at the kind of, all right, let's talk about the money situation, how we can start this. I think that if we can, I think I can easily talk to people and raise the $4,000. I think I can do that. And then once we do that, once we have a plan, we can just send an email. I think just sending an email to fundraise, and here's our plan, or we can even do some kind of presentation. I'll give a
I think
presentation in the future.
might be okay.
Yeah, I know, it's just, not the best.
Well,
I'll need your help on that one.
Yeah, we
Actually,
work together.
John offered to help make a slide, a PowerPoint, you know. I mean, I'll definitely help out
I
and
think people
answer
have to see
questions.
what's possible.
100%. That's what I'm saying.
Strongly about that, yeah.
That's why I'm saying if I know I can get the $4,000 amongst people to support that initial thing, and once we show them the plan and things that we're doing, I mean, just like how we built this thing.
So when he says $40,000, does that
I-
translate to full fruition, or what
Bare
is- what
bones
does that mean?
minimum, $15,000 probably.
Just to get it started, you mean?
Yeah.
What would it look like?
Well, that's what we're gonna do. You gotta think we need some infrastructure. The main thing, the biggest expense is gonna be a greenhouse, because
Oh.
that's gonna keep your annuals year round, and that's what's important. But the idea is
Yeah, that's
to small scale it. That's why I keep saying organic farm and permaculture, because in order to do production and to keep, a steady rotation of things, you gotta farm, not permaculture wise, which you need a greenhouse. And I think that we have enough space where we can small scale it and then see what works, and then apply that on a bigger scale and be able to it'd be a good idea to do this, and then we can branch out and, do it on our own. We won't probably need the help of somebody else because we already got all the information.
I guess another thing to get from this guy, if we're gonna go with the consulting fee and all that, is to get a good sense of how much labor will be needed
Yes.
over a short or long period of time. Because my concern, as we talked about this before, is that we set this beautiful thing up, or we even just pay the consulting fee and we get a couple of dishes, but then we don't have that consistent.
Yes.
You can see here is a problem. It's like having that consistent
Yes.
labor that allows the project to run efficiently and effectively over time.
I talked to George, and George is gonna have to commit. George is gonna have to commit. But even then, if we invest in something, everyone around here would step up. I mean, no one might be happy about being forced to work, but I don't see the labor on the beginning as a problem, especially, I'm sure George will commit. He already said he'll commit. Even if, I don't know how much he's getting paid, but I mean, even if there's a way to get him to commit. But I think he already said he would. He's excited for it. And I told him, we have guaranteed 20 to 40 hours of labor pretty much already, and that's not a problem.
It can also be
And
as
I'll
simple
manage
as-
it, no
I
problem.
was gonna say, it could be as
Which is
simple as
this.
having a manager.
Well, that's why I broke it up.
Somebody that just sets up a labor schedule.
Well, that's exactly,
Oh, Damien, can you do an hour a week and you just have to do this thing?
that's my mindset.
John does an hour a week, and if that's the case, then it's easy.
Exactly.
If we don't have a manager, we don't have a schedule and a plan, then it's just gonna fall through.
And I don't mind doing that, being that person. Exactly, especially if I'm heavily involved. I'm kind of gonna want to be.
Yeah.
And I want to do this. I mean, I really want to do this. It's a good thing. So it wouldn't really be too much work. I don't see it as work. It's work, yeah, but it's work I want to do. So I don't mind doing the managing and the logistics of things at all. And I have that mindset here. Everything's figured out. All someone has to
is because then if we literally create a farmers market kind of a situation, we could have market Sundays
Yes.
or Saturdays or something,
And
just invite people in, and then you can even
our
like, oh, there's a
zones-
Buddhist center here, and you kind of follow
We're
people in
zoned
here.
to have a commercial
That's what I was
place
wondering.
here where a business, a commercial agriculture
So
business.
that's what
We're
you're saying.
semi-agricultural here, all this neighborhood. So everything we want to do, we're zoned for it.
We just need to get the permit.
We just need to get the stuff, which isn't that hard. And that's exactly what he also helps. If we want to get certified, we can get organic
I really
certified,
like that.
all the
That I like
steps.
a lot.
So,
Because that, what's really good about that is then you start getting volunteers from outside of the Buddhist community. And you get like kids from USF, or hippie chicks, or
well,
like
that's what,
people that want to come in and be a part of this permaculture project.
and it's such a community where everyone wants to help each other and be involved with everything that's going on in Florida. It's a win-win. I see all the pieces. It's just they need to be put together. I mean, it'll be a really, really good thing, even if it didn't get to profit, which I think that's a huge opportunity.
That's maybe a 5-10-year plan, but it's still something that can be very possible.
And I talked to Lincoln, I don't know if I told you, I met with Lincoln. I went to his office for after work and talked to him for about an hour. Yeah, I thought he would give some pushback. He was game for it. Is he okay? Or is he okay? I know he's having some problems. Oh, okay. All right, so he even, gave some help. He was kind of for it, actually. But I did tell him that I'll help out with Kentucky. I mean, that's a huge thing. They're gonna need some help.
What about the pest issue? Does he have something built into his structure for that? Because that's something that's going to come up a lot.
Yes. All about exactly. I mean, that was one of the questions asked about fences, and of course we're gonna experience problems. We're gonna have to, but they have solutions to all those things. And we want to go organic, and so we'll have access to those techniques. And what's good is John already has a pretty good foundation. He just doesn't want to be the guy making the decisions.
It seems like he's
So it's kind of good.
because he'll show up every day. Like, John
100%.
will be there watering,
A kid in
tending the
game, so
yard.
he's-
Yeah, exactly. But he's not the director.
Yeah, because and ideally, like if a position became available, or you guys have to put up a position, I said, John, I would love for you to have it, and we just, just work together. But he don't want that. But
Sounds good.
um,
So what's next? Just
that's what I was gonna say. So
fundraising?
should I try talking to people and raising,
I think at this point,
or do we want to talk to the board first?
no. I think wait on that. I think still allow this to materialize a little bit, and then once you have funds and you have something that, because at this point there's so many things going on, and the center has a lot of other priorities that I think I don't want to just bring this right away. But if this starts to materialize and it looks like it's gaining momentum, and once the picture becomes clearer and clearer, then you can go to them and be like, here's what's going on, here's what we expect, here's
Okay.
what the potential is. Is it okay if we just allocate this over here and allow, because Drupon, I think he's okay with allowing the Senate to be a part of
100%.
it. So
I
it's just
think
a
he's
matter
getting
of
more and more
moving on.
excited too.
It's just about
And
moving on.
Virginia is gonna try to bring it up to holiness when they're up there in New York as well. So
And
she's
it's-
helping on
Holiness
that.
in some ways is kind of asking for that.
Exactly, and I think Drupon's getting more excited about it. And I told him about the guy how it was good news. So when I emailed a bunch of the people for consulting, and then when I was telling them our situation, I would say our members. But when the guy Alex, when he responded, he immediately said Sangha. So that right away, it's our dude. He was the quickest to respond. And when I was researching all the people, he was the guy I wanted to go with right away. So I think it's really calm.
Sounds good.
So
Yeah, so I would say just talk to people, like
That's-
you're like doing right now, and I'll mention it to Mel and see what we can afford at this time, and we'll contribute, and then, yeah, and then just kind of.
So my mindset then is that just keep it an idea until after winter retreat.
Okay.
Then we can be serious about hiring a consultant. That's my goal.
center, I think, is open to it, as long as Drupon thinks it's a good idea, then we have to talk to the board of directors about, once it becomes a serious thing, because we have to consider some of the legalities,
100%.
insurance, and money, but that's all an afterthought once it's moving.
So I
can say yay or nay. So I think just try to get the ball rolling.
Okay, I got with Drupon already, and he walked around here and told me areas that he would like to see stuff done and across the street, and you know, we pretty much have a blank slate. He said across the street, we can pretty much, as long as we can still drive around the building. He said, it's the only thing he cares.
And then,
But the idea that probably works best, and talking to people, permaculture here, landscaping, like a good herb garden here, and then across the street would be greenhouse, and then maybe some annual rows, and then probably in the shade, do some permaculture in the shade areas. So that's kind of the idea.
that's a great idea.
And
Tons of herbs here, tons of flowers, tons of permaculture, just to make the grounds look beautiful, and then over there you do most of the food.
so basically, what a good summary of what we want to make is kind of like a chef's garden, is basically what we do.
Yeah,
For
makes
now.
the most sense, yeah.
For now. So, I mean, I see us having these, the whole gamut of everything, our own compost operation, like, we have everything that we need here, we really do. So the bigger picture is,
Sounds great, man.
so I'm gonna talk to, people, just kind of raise, but not give money, just, hey, who are you willing to throw in? On the consulting, and especially people that live in this area that I'm gonna ask and talk to. So you're okay with that? Okay. Yeah, because I think once I talk to everybody, like I said, I only need to convince 7 people with $500.
I would also, I mean, maybe you thought about this already, but I would say, like, those people who are the most interested and willing to give some money for the consultants, collect those first, because then when you go to the people who are either A, don't know, or B, are on the fence, or C, they just, you know, they might be a bit more.
Monkey see, monkey do. I got you.
Yeah.
No, I totally, that's why I was like, I'm giving mine first, and then I'm gonna go to the people that I know will give.
You have,
Yeah.
so I mean, that $1,500 will collect it for this purpose, and Drupon has this
Exactly.
solidness.
And the thing of it is, we don't have, the 4 is the top of the bracket. I mean, he said between 2 and 4. Once he comes out here, he'll be able to give us a better price, what we want to do. And if we tell him, hey, we want to keep it at $2 grand or $3 grand, then he'll just keep it at that.
Okay.
But I want to shoot for the 4, because I don't want any limits.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
I hope I'm not annoying this situation.
Annoying?
Yeah.
No, not at all. I like the passion. I mean, we had this thought, I don't think, was it before you moved here?
Yeah.
I think
When I first started sniffing around here,
we
there
had
was
this big
talks.
plan, man.
Yeah.
I remember we
Sustainable.
were getting emails on them and everything.
Oh, really?
No.
Wow.
We just didn't, because we didn't have an appointment. And John was the appointment in regards to doing stuff. But he doesn't have the same organizational abilities as you do, so it was like,
It
we were
works
doing
out.
it and making it happen, but everyone was like, that's
And
really
he
cool.
made it clear, like,
But we need someone to bring everything into the center, literally into the center, and then direct our energy towards an end goal.
yeah,
If this is gonna actually
come on, gonna happen.
come out, you know. So, yeah, good.
But I have one more thing I want to say. Oh, if I think about sex.
Okay.
What were we talking about before that?
Consulting or something. Baby yours would be cute. When I look at baby yours, I think of my baby. Because they have like very similar.
Yeah, and like their face gets all wrinkly somehow.
Yeah.
Even though they're like
The way they make the noises.
Alrighty.
All right, yeah, thank you.
No problem. Your shoes are weird. I have in the back of mind to get a tutorial on this because I'm here on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
You
a lot
are?
of times.
All right, so we need somebody we can trust.
I don't know if I'm going to take it off because I think it's going to flow into my responsibility.
Right.
But I do at some
We need
point.
somebody though.
Yeah, I know.